Hello there. I want to welcome you to E.D.S. Inc. Shandon and another episode. We have a little project here today that we've already got started on. I didn't take any tape at the beginning. I want to apologize for that. But we can show you where we left off and go from there. To start with, I want to show you a couple of new tools that we've acquired and for our wood shop. And that's actually what we're going to be working on today. It's going to be a project that's done in the middle shop with the lathe and what have you, but it's for the wood shop. So what we have is a shaper, and it has a flange like this. We need a hole that's only 4.5 inches in the center of it. So we have to have a flange that'll fit this flange, and that'll only have a 4.5, or actually we're going to make the hole a 4.25 hole. That'll be enough for our shaper head that we're going to be using in that shaper. So the cutters that we're putting into it. So that's what we have going. I'll go ahead and I'll show you what new machines we have, and then we'll come back here and I'll show you what we're doing in the shop to make that happen. Okay, so this is the new shaper that we have. It's an Italian-made unit, and it's 9 horsepower, 1.25 inch spindle on it with a power feed. And our old one, we had an old Whitney. We still have it. If anybody wants it, we're probably going to be selling it. But we had an old Whitney that dated back to probably the 1920s, and it just didn't have enough power. We were running through that walnut when we made that walnut door, and it just didn't want to move. We had to cut it all out on the table saw to start with, and then run it through to do the cut. And so we got this one. It's an F-115. You can see down here the speeds that you can acquire on it. You got the low speed 2900, goes to 4400, 6,000, 8,000, and then 10,000 RPM. So it gives us a little bit more versatility. The old Whitney was just a single speed, flat belt driven, and so anyway, this will be a little bit more advantageous to us. It also has this table here. This is a sliding table. So that gives us a little bit more, when we're cutting the rails on the doors, it's nice to have this. We can put a T-fence on this and push them right through that shaper blade. It used to be that we'd have to do those end cuts by hand, and that's got to be a little bit dangerous. So this will ease up that problem. So here's the rings. Each one of these is a size ring for a different set of cutters on this unit. The ring I showed you earlier comes in about so far, but it's still about a 7-inch hole, and we need to bring that hole into about 4.25. So we're going to make another one of these flanges with those details so it sets in there, and it'll be a little bit safer. Now this is our other purchase we made. We got this for $100. It's a pin router. They're kind of being phased out of the industry because now everything's CNC. But the way this works is your router is this upper head here. You can tell from my hand that that's a big drive there. Has a big old spindle in there that runs it. That spindle rises and lowers to take your bit down into the material. This is where your bit goes up into. You can put whatever collet size you have for whatever bit size. Typically it's either going to be 1/4 inch or a 1/2 inch. So we've got a 1/4 inch collet and a 1/2 inch collet. So that's all we really need, and for this machine. So this pin by stepping on a pedal, it raises this pin. This bed lowers or raises depending upon the thickness of your material, and the spindle comes down and up. So you can measure the cut that you're going to make in its depth. And this pin comes up because CNC is on a computer unit. Well, in the old days, which weren't too long ago, you'd use a pin router and you'd make a jig, and the jig would be so thick and it'd have the cutout that you wanted to make with your pin router. And so you'd set your material onto that jig, the pin would come up, and wherever that cut was on your, or that jig was, that router bit would cut that material at that location. And so you could do a cutout, you could make smiley faces, you could make just about anything you wanted with the right jig. These are used quite extensively in the making of musical instruments like guitars and items like that. They found them very useful. They make patterns, and they're able to use that pattern to make the shape of their guitars. So what I really liked about this is the big bed. So we got this really nice big bed here. Now, to buy a machine that would cut out light kits in a door would cost me $15,000 to $30,000. And like I said, I got this for $100 plus some other fees. I think I'm totally into it right now at about $250. So this has this nice big table on it, and I can set up an adjustable jig so that we could do all our light and louver cutouts in our doors, and that'll save us some time. Right now we lay them out by hand and cut them with a router from the top, and with a jig that we make for each occasion. So this will help alleviate that. So those are the two new tools we got. Okay, we're over at the lathe now, and I wanted to give you a perspective. This is what we cut the part out of that we needed. We put this on the bandsaw and made a cup. I got this piece of scrap material down at our steel supplier. It was in their boneyard, and it had a lot of scale, and it had been cut with a torch. You could see that on the end. So it was in some places very hard, had a lot of scale on it, so we had to do a slow cut with this. And this is what it turned into. You can see a real nice, beautiful, shiny cut. They still have a little bit of scarring here, but that'll be cut out when we make our when we do our recess. So we've already got started with that. A very pretty finish on it. It is looking nice. I did that last night. I still have 1/8 of an inch to go on this hole to get it sized, and then we have to do the other elements on that part. So this is the drawing that I made for myself. It's an exaggerated drawing, but it helps me to see the details. So the top detail for the thin part of the flange is 7 1/4. We didn't get that. We're going to be down to just under 7 inches. So we'll probably pick up on the second flange level. Let's take you over there and I'll show you what I mean. This is the part that it's going to fit into, and you see that little groove there. That's 7 1/4 from side to side, and that's only, oh man, it's minimal in its depth. I have it written down somewhere, but so what we're shooting for is just to set into this inset here. We're not going to try to, because our part is too small to fit in there. Had to trim too much off of it. So we're going to fit it down on this ledge and on down, and it'll be flush with the top of this. So that's what we're kind of doing. So now I'll take you back over to the drawing and we'll discuss that for a second. So the width of this was 7 1/4, and of course all I've got is about 6 and a little bit over 7/8. So the first cut would have been 0.037. That would have been the first little ledge that we're making. But we're going to actually just go right down to this ledge. So we have to have that. That's going to be 0.418 to that depth, and the overall width of it is going to be 6.90. So we barely have enough material for that. So this is the bottom part has to be 6.50 to slip through there. And I have this drawn at 4.5. I went back and remeasured my knives, and they're just barely 4 inches. So we're going to go 4.25 for clearance instead of 4.5. And it's always nicer to get your material more solid towards the shaper head. That way you don't have a place where the wood will dip down into it when you're doing end cuts and that sort of thing. So that'll work a lot better for what we're doing, for the purpose that we're going to use that shaper for. So anyway, so that's what we're doing. We've got the part in here. We'll set up the camera and we'll start going to work. Okay, so we got about 1/8 of an inch to take off this, so we're going to go ahead and turn her on and start doing our cutting. Okay, let's get this side down. We got a nice radius in here, so that'll be that way we won't have anybody cutting their hands loading or unloading this plate, and because we will use the wider plates as well. So now what we're going to do is we're going to blue this up, and we're going to measure out the thickness that we need to take off of this. So we'll get that done, and is our next part. I wanted to show you where I keep my little acid brush here. I got a little Pepsi can, cut it off, and I put a magnet in the bottom of the can, and then I put my brush in here, and it's held to that magnet, and I have some acetone down there so it keeps it supple. So even though, because once that ink dries up, it stiffens those brushes. This way I can keep it clean and usable at all times. Okay, so I used my caliper, came in here, and marked it. So we have our mark we want to cut to. Oh, okay, so I've got my, I've set up and just took a pass off of this to set my stop on my machine. I'm going to power feed it through there. So I've got it set up so it'll take it right up to my cut. And so we'll go ahead and start taking this down to the dimension that we need. There we go. We're right there, aren't we? Very nice. Okay, we'll pop this. Well, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean up this corner here. That needs to be more. My tool had a radius to it, so. As I was saying, my tool has a radius on the inside, so I'm going to clean that up in the corner there. Okay, so we've finished our ring now. So now it's the time to find out if it works. And you can see that the finish on this is just really nice. Of course, it's got some sawdust and stuff on it now, but it turned out just beautiful. Finished out really well. And let's see how she fits. And just as sweet as can be. Now, I wasn't able to get it to fit all the way up to this ridge because the material wasn't wide enough. So we'll just have to live with that little gap there in between the two. But it fits very nicely, nice and snugly, and that'll prevent the wood from dropping down into that hole when we're cutting it with our shaper. So now we have our final ring on there, and this part is complete. This is Jeff from E.D.S. Inc. Shandon. I want to thank you for watching and viewing our video this week. We'll have more content coming up. We've got a lot of little things to do. And my nephew's coming back again, so he'll be here next week. So we'll have more work to do in the shop that he'll be doing, welding and other fabrication work that we'll be able to film and share with you. So thanks again for watching. If you'd like to subscribe, please do so. If you'd like to give me a thumbs up, that's always appreciated. And any comments you want to make, go right ahead. We look forward to comments, positive, negative, doesn't matter. I'm learning here. So thank you very much for watching, and look forward to your next visit to E.D.S. Inc. Shandon. Thanks much.